All right, man, peace. So, brothers, this is going to be volume 2 in the series that I started in the last batch of videos called Who Are the Real Coons? And as I've stated, it's very important that we establish what portion of our people are being deleterious to our overall rise or elevation, because they're the most important component in what we have to address. Not the so-called white man, not the other races, so on and so forth. We cannot compete until we address the people who are holding us down for whatever reason, whether it's that they're unlearned, untaught, or unwilling to be a positive member or positive aspect of what we need to do. In my view, it's not necessarily a money issue, because the so-called black man and woman are the biggest consumers in America and therefore on the planet Earth, especially in juxtaposition with the production power that we have. We have the lowest level of production power and the highest level of consumer power. And what that basically equates to is a slave mentality. All we do is work and don't see the benefits of our work, and it's because of our mindset. We have to address the lack of a ruling class mentality, and that means that we have to address the lower aspects, the lower dregs of the so-called black community. And we'll never be able to really assess these things properly as long as we align ourselves to the misunderstanding of color equaling race. As long as you believe that you're so-called black, that means that you adhere to the concept of the slave narrative. That being that every so-called black person is a descendant of slaves and that we have no history. That's one of the main reasons why our people have such a poor self-image and such low self-esteem. It's a major problem. And it means that we try to compensate for our poor self-image and low self-esteem by adhering to ideologies that are based in contrarianism. A lot of our people just like to go against the status quo just for the sake of doing it, and they believe that it's a sign of revolution, and it's not. It's really a sign of dysfunction and the promotion of anarchy. A lot of these so-called activists are nothing but agents of chaos. They promote an energy that is very harmful, especially to a lot of younger people who are extremely impressionable, who come from homes that are not stable and not functional themselves. And we see them act out in ways that show a lack of self-respect, a lack of decorum, and a lack of proper home training, because there's no order in the household due to the implementation of the black matriarchy. It's often the people who want to participate the most in these rallies and protests who have the least to say, and they have no end game whatsoever. To me, it's very simple. We have to focus on the so-called black man. Once we as so-called black men correct ourselves, and that's going to take a process of time, then there should be a trickle-down effect to our partner, meaning our woman, then our children, the household, etc. And then it expands outward. All these shows of force with these vain protests and so-called activism, they go nowhere. And as any cat who pays attention knows and can see, they're trying to transition all of the affluence, all the power to the woman. And that's in every community, amongst every so-called race. If they can transfer it over to the woman, they will. It's been most effective in the so-called black community, because the so-called black man has the least amount of knowledge of himself and his history. So he's more willing to allow the power shift over to the woman, because he does not quite understand the ramifications of allowing that shift like the other races of men do. The Asian man, the Arab man, the African man, they would never in their lives allow their women to become leaders of their so-called community, because they know what's going to happen. What's going to happen is that chaos will be propagated exponentially. Generation upon generation, the chaos factor is going to rise exponentially. So we have to understand those same things. I was having a conversation with a brother the other night who told me that he formerly was associated with the quote-unquote Black Lives Matter movement, and he confirmed everything that I've been saying in many of these videos, that being that they're led by lesbians and homosexuals for the most part. That's their business. But if they go into masquerade as being some type of unit of force and improvement in the so-called black community, that's just not the case. And as I'll be covering in other videos, when you see factions like that, they try to use the plight of the so-called black man to gain validation or credibility, because they know that even though the so-called black woman likes to complain about racism, she's received many more benefits from this society than she's been the recipient of detrimental treatment. No matter how much racism the black woman is the recipient of, she's received many more benefits. And the other races, they know that. That's why they don't take them seriously when they speak about race. Most black women are not taken seriously when they speak about race if they're only going to talk about themselves. So they have to talk about the black man. They have to act like they're marching and protesting for the plight and for the sake of the so-called black man. But out the other side of their mouth, they'll speak about how they're pro-abortion rights. because their true platform is feminism. Like I've stated, that's going to be a video for another day. I'm speaking about it pertaining to this issue right here because the black matriarchal energy has a trickle-down effect on the children. They act out and they believe, like liberal women do, that there should never be any repercussions for their actions. And many of these children are getting gunned down by the cops or by other rebellious children because they're never taught respect. There was a situation that occurred in Harlem just yesterday where 2 police officers were attempting to make an arrest on a so-called black man. And a bunch of teenagers started to douse them with water and hit them over the head with pails and with buckets. And they had to take it. It was in broad daylight, and people don't understand that there's a trickle-down effect from that. All those clowns were standing there laughing and pointing at the cops. People in the street were laughing and pointing at the cops because the so-called black man has been taught that his number one enemy is the police, and it's really not. Our number one enemy is that person in the mirror. When we conquer that person in the mirror, everything else will start to get better. Once again, is the treatment that the so-called black man is the recipient of from law enforcement or from the police an issue? Absolutely. But it's about 12th or 15th on the list of problems that we have, man. We don't get any respect in the household because the black matriarchal figure in the household has that Luciferian energy that she's exuding, and she's playing 2 or 3 different sides against one another. So once we come to recalibrate that paradigm, everything's going to get better. But the so-called black man has to accept responsibility for his actions. We all have to accept responsibility for our actions if we're going to rule. You can't rule if you have no accountability. That's the bottom line. And what we're going to see in this segment is going to show a lot of unruly children who easily could have gotten shot. And they don't understand that in the future, especially in that area, when you call the cops and ask for help, they're going to take their time to come. And those same type of children who were dousing the cops with water and buckets and pails and things of that nature, everybody pointing and laughing, those same kids who are doing that are the same type that will run up behind a black person who's 50 years old or 55 years old and punch him in the back of the head because they're playing a knockout game. Or they'll be in Central Park engaging in wildings where they're jumping random people, knocking them off a bicycle, stomping them out. So all that, quote unquote, we're rising up against the cops, that looks good to people who are simple-minded or who are just trying to troll the police force and who want to use the police as this representation of black oppression. But those children need to be chastised and put in their place or they're going to end up dead. So anyway, they're going to talk about it. I'm going to chime in.
Now, outrage over videos showing NYPD officers in uniform getting pelted with water and buckets. It happened while they were responding to incidents during the weekend's heat wave. CBS 2's Lisa Rosner has this.
They violated them! Doused with buckets of water, the NYPD says officers were soaked while
Now, that little boy came up behind the cop and doused him with water. That can be considered an assault. Now, when that same little boy gets ran down by another group of people who want to rob him or mug him or beat him down, I hope that his mother does not appear on television saying, "We can't believe it. We called the cops and it took them 45 minutes to come. And now my baby's in the hospital in a coma. He had his head stomped against the pavement and we don't know if he's going to make it. These cops this and these cops that." In order to receive respect, you have to emit respect. You have to respect others to get respect back. And I'm sure that a lot of cats goes, "Oh, well, who cares what happened to these cops? What they do to us with?" Man, please stop it. We have to be more concerned about what we're doing to one another, because if we operated on a high level, we could have our own police force. But our people don't think on that level. We're so frustrated with the police because, no disrespect, a lot of so-called black males think like women and act like women. You just want to troll these people that you want to love you so bad.
To a call about a disorderly group on East New York Avenue in Brooklyn Saturday afternoon. A similar scene caught on camera during this weekend's record high temps. The NYPD arresting someone at a car in Harlem when they too were pelted with water and even struck on the head with an empty bucket.
I've worked in this neighborhood for 10 years and I've never seen anything like that.
Tonight, extra police where it happened on St. Nicholas Avenue and 115th Street. The mayor addressed the issue on New York 1 Monday night.
Throwing things at an NYPD officer is not only not acceptable, it can lead to charges.
Look at this shit, man. That's why I say I couldn't be no police officer, dude. You have to know your temperament in order to do certain jobs. To be there making an arrest and people are throwing buckets to the back of your head. Oh my goodness. Once again, these will be the same people who want to protest and march. 95% of these protesters do not have a three-dimensional level of thought. They're not solution oriented. All they're looking for is attention. They have issues within themselves that they cannot resolve. Once again, am I saying that the police have operated in an upright manner with so-called black people? Of course not. There have been instances where they have taken advantage of their power. There's no doubt about that. But this is unacceptable, because this is a sign of a promotion of chaos that's going to only come back on that neighborhood. And there were two neighborhoods pointed out here in which this situation occurred, one in Brooklyn and one in Harlem. So maybe this is a thing that they're trying to start, some type of trend of when cops make arrests that you assault them and throw water on them. But I'm telling you, it's not going to end well for you. But it's very difficult for a lot of our people to grasp. At least the real coons are never going to be able to grasp this, because they think on a very low level.
Those actions can lead to charges.
The NYPD Chief of Department Terrence Monahan added the situation is, quote, reprehensible, and said every New Yorker must show respect for our cops. Councilman Keith Powers is on the Public Safety Committee.
The hard part to watch was really these great public servants going out there, doing their jobs, and being treated like they don't matter. And as a city, I know that we're better than that.
Oh my God! You're making up.
The NYPD says in both cases, no arrests were made and the agency is investigating. In Harlem, Lisa Rosner, CBS 2 News.
Well, they don't have to make any arrests. They're going to get to pay back their own type of way. As I've stated, in those communities, you're going to see that those people are going to call the police for assistance or for help. And it's going to take them much longer to get that help. You're going to have elders, older black women or black men who might be the victims of robbery, burglary, assault, etc. And they're going to be lying there on their kitchen floor or their living room floor or in the hallway of their apartment complex bleeding to death, because the cops are going to take their sweet time to come and assist them, because they're going to say, okay, in this district, they don't respect us. So to hell with them. You know, it is what it is, man. But once again, brothers, a real coon is not someone who is not as woke, quote unquote, as you want them to be, or not as big an internet revolutionary as you are, or how you want them to be, or is not as pro-blackity black as you want them to be. A real coon is a promoter of anarchy and chaos, someone who has no understanding of what's going on around them, whether they be male or female, and are always trying to promote ideologies that lead to the destruction of our people. That's what a real coon is. In order for us to build, we have to be constructive, not destructive, because that's what the word build means. It means to construct. How can we build anything up? How can we rise if you have people who are being destructive and do not know how to interact with others, no matter what their origins are, whether it be race, creed, or what have you? You have to operate on a higher level so that we can get real results.
Police Benevolence Association, the union, blamed the mayor's policies and said in situations like this, officers need to take action.
I agree. As a grown man, as a human being, you can't have another person dousing you with water and hitting you in the back of the head with a damn bucket, man. I mean, are you crazy? Once again, the same kids out there doing that who are going to receive cheers on the internet because they so-called stood up against the cops, they're going to be them same kids running up behind a 45 or a 55-year-old black man playing a knockout game. They're going to be the same kids in the park trying to see who they can jump, what random bicycle rider they can jump. I'm telling you, it's not going to end well. And when the Police Benevolent Association says that there needs to be some action, that means payback. You're going to have people out here getting shot because they know why they can shoot someone and under what situation they can shoot someone. So we have to have a far higher level of understanding.